Sorry, I had written all this down because I really thought I could get through it in one video, but there were some behaviors that we need to know about. We need to discuss them and tell you about his Google searches, everything. So just so you know, they presented a pattern where he was constantly doing Google searches, trying to understand different ways to bring his wife under his control. We already talked about, I think, yesterday's video, for 444 missing miles. So on January 8th, his car traveled 444 miles while Larry said he was at the beach with his son for 12 hours with his phone turned off. He did call out sick from work on, I believe it was January 5th or 6th. And then the boss never heard from him again. The boss tried to reach out. Larry's family tried to reach out. Maya's family tried to reach out. Larry would not respond to anybody. He was completely off the grid for 12 hours. And then there was also something, it was mentioned way earlier, but there were also multiple guns in the home, in the family home. And there were photos of Larry taking pictures of all of his guns. And there have been all types of restraining orders. And I believe some of the guns were unregistered or the serial numbers, something illegal about some of the guns. They presented binders, and I mean binders full of emails and texts that took place between Larry and Maya over the course of the year. And by the way, really in June of 2020 is when everything really started to escalate. That's when his contact became more and more fierce. In fact, he sent 473 messages to Maya in just the month of June 2020 alone. 1 month, 473 outreaches in just that 1 month. Larry contacted Genesis, the sister-in-law, more than 12 times a day. He sent more than 1,700 emails to spellcasters trying to get somebody to help him resolve this issue with his wife. This one that Frank, that testified, said that at one point Larry was contacting him 27 times per day and that he had to be blocked because he was so obsessive about getting in contact with these spellcasters. He had planted subliminal message devices underneath her bed. He wouldn't allow Maya access to their financial accounts or the family funds. He planted tracking devices in her car. He kept a calendar of her activities. All of this is really important because it shows a pattern of his control and his obsessiveness over her. They gave us insight to Google searches, text messages, and some of the emails he sent to spellcasters. So this is just directly from the trial. Google searches, how to mentally torture someone. Can you track an iPhone if it's in airplane mode? Subliminal wife training, love spells that work, 11 deadly plants you should never eat, plants you can take and never wake up, how to tell if your partner is cheating. He also did Google searches for flunitrazepam and rohypnol, pronunciation, whatever. Those are sedation drugs. They're roofies. He also looked up spotless car washes, and he looked up locations in Arizona, Grand Canyon and other locations in Arizona. He sent some texts to his boss. This was January 5th, 6th, and 7th of 2021, starting with, she's asking for a divorce again. Then, life is hopeless. These are all quotes. And then, I'm not right. I'm about to lose it. And by the way, his boss deleted some of those text messages and was called on it in court. They also found a list in Larry's desk, 2 papers. This is just from a couple of days ago that I put this in a video, where they were mantra lists for Maya to say things like, I trust my husband to make all of our financial decisions. I trust my husband, Larry, and I will obey my husband, Larry. Like, it's freakish cult stuff. Anyway, he also sent emails to spellcasters. They started out like, can you make my wife fall back in love with me? Can you cast love spells? Can you make my wife desire me? Can you make my wife want to be intimate with me more than 1 time per day? And then it turns to, can you make her sick? Can you incapacitate her? Can you make her so sick that she's reliant on me? Can you do spells for broken bones? He's asking about spells for sex slave, for total dominance. And then he wants some black magic spells. He's telling them, and this is a quote, I'm shaking inside. I'm ready to snap. He's telling this to the spellcasters. He's telling them also, we're in a worse situation. She's pushing. I think she wants me to snap. So it was over the course of the 25 days, the prosecution is trying to show this pattern. We might not have a body, but we have an absolute pattern of motive and opportunity and him seeking for means, right? There's guns in the home. He's looking up roofies. He's looking up hemlock. He's asking people for all of these different things. You know, he wanted to be dominant over his wife. He wanted his wife as a sex slave. He wanted all of these things. He was trying to subliminally trick her into being in love with him and control her. And then he had also financially dominated her. Even though she was the breadwinner, he took all the money and wouldn't let her have access to things, which is part of the reason she was struggling to get a divorce. She couldn't even afford an attorney. But during the preliminary hearing, part of the reason that the judge let this go forward was because he said this pattern, this exact pattern right here, was very different than Larry's behavior from January 8th onward. So to sum this up, Larry had proven over the course of 2020, mostly the later half of 2020, to be obsessive, to be controlling, always wanting to know where Maya was, who she was with, where they went, who she talked to, who she ate lunch with, who she shopped with, who she was chatting to. Dozens and dozens of contacts per day. There were emails, there were texts, there were WhatsApp, there were FaceTimes. He was smothering, he was jealous, he was controlling. He was essentially consumed with his wife. He told everyone, and I mean everyone who would listen, anyone, absolute strangers, how desperate he was to try to save his marriage and fix his wife. He thought she was going through a midlife crisis. He thought she was depressed. He thought he was trying to fix her so she would fall back in love with him. He told his parents. He told his aunt. He told Maya's father. He told all of Maya's brothers, all of Maya's sisters. He told Maya's sister-in-law, Maya's brother-in-law. He told Maya's boss. He told his own boss. He told at least 5 of Maya's good friends and coworkers. He told her entire Facebook friend group. He told Patricia Laird, who is the wife of Maya's affair partner, how desperate he was to get his wife back. And he even told Frank, the spellcaster, an absolute stranger, how desperate he was to get his wife back. He told everyone, every day, what he was going through and how much he loved his wife. And every single bit of that stopped after January 7th of 2021. From that point on, he made no contacts. He didn't contact the hospitals. He didn't contact Maya's work. He wasn't even the one that called the police to report her missing. He didn't try to reach out to her. If Maya had run away from her life, if Maya had said, that's it, I've had it, I'm leaving, you know that there would have been so many outgoing calls from Larry's phone, obsessive texts, messages, emails. Maya, please come home. Maya, where are you? Maya, the kids are worried. Maya, where are you? Maya, where are you? Maya, where are you? Not one. Not fucking one. Everything stopped. His entire obsession with her stopped, almost as if he knew it wasn't going to do any good anyway. She was never coming back. In fact, on January 9th, he emailed a spellcaster and asked, can you please stop hexing my wife and start hexing Jamie Laird? He no longer needed spells for black magic. He no longer needed his wife to come back to him. Larry's defense starts today. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't know how the fuck he's gonna defend himself against some of this stuff. But I'm not the jury. In my mind, he's guilty, but let's see what the jury does. And by the way, there is no body. This is all circumstantial, but there are a lot of men that are in prison for the rest of their lives with less evidence than this. So I'll be back when we find out what the defense has to say.